The night was dark and the rain was falling hard when Sam got the phone call that changed his life. He was sitting in his small apartment, eating noodles and watching television, when his phone started ringing. The number was unknown. He almost did not answer it, but something made him pick it up. "Is this Samuel Carter?" a woman's voice asked. She sounded tired and worried. "Yes. Who is this?" Sam asked. "This is Officer Diana Reyes from the Millbrook Police Department. I am calling about your grandfather, Henry Carter." Sam put down his fork. His grandfather was 82 years old and lived alone in a big old house at the edge of a small town called Millbrook. Sam had not visited him in almost a year. He felt guilty about that every single day, but life in the city was busy, and the town was 6 hours away by car. "What happened? Is he okay?" Sam asked quickly. There was a short silence on the other end. "Your grandfather is missing, Mr. Carter. His neighbor called us this morning when she noticed his front door was wide open. We searched the house and the area around it, but there is no sign of him. We were hoping you might know where he could be." Sam felt his heart drop. His grandfather was old, but he was sharp. He was not the kind of man who would just walk out of his house and disappear. Something was wrong. "I have no idea where he could be," Sam said. "I am coming there. I will leave tonight." He packed a small bag, got into his old car, and started driving through the rain. The road was long and dark. He could not stop thinking about his grandfather. Henry Carter was a quiet man who kept to himself. He had been a history professor many years ago, before he retired. He spent most of his time reading old books and writing in his journals. He never caused any trouble. Why would he just vanish? Sam arrived in Millbrook early in the morning. The town looked exactly the same as he remembered it. Small shops along the main street, old trees lining the roads, and very few people walking around. It was the kind of town where nothing ever happened. Or at least, that is what everyone believed. He drove to his grandfather's house. It was a large wooden house with a big garden that had gone wild over the years. The paint was coming off the walls, and the roof looked like it needed fixing. 2 police cars were parked outside. Sam got out and walked to the front door where a young officer was standing. "I am Sam Carter, Henry's grandson," he said. The officer nodded and let him inside. The house was a mess, but not in the way a robbery would leave it. It was the kind of mess that comes from years of collecting things and never throwing anything away. Books were piled everywhere. Old maps hung on the walls. There were stacks of newspapers on every table and chair. She was a tall woman with short hair and serious eyes. She shook Sam's hand. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "We have checked the hospitals, the bus station, and the nearby roads. Nothing. Your grandfather did not take his car. His wallet and phone are still here. Wherever he went, he did not plan to go far." Sam looked around the living room. Everything looked normal for his grandfather's house. But then he noticed something. The large painting that always hung above the fireplace was on the floor, leaning against the wall. Behind where the painting used to be, there was a hole in the wall. It was not a random hole. It was a small square opening, like a hidden space that someone had built on purpose. "Did you see this?" Sam asked, pointing at the hole. Officer Reyes walked over and looked at it. "We noticed it, yes. It was empty when we found it. Whatever was inside, your grandfather must have taken it out before he left. Or someone else did." Sam reached inside the hole. His fingers touched the rough wood at the back. He felt around the edges carefully. Then, in the bottom corner, he felt something. A small piece of paper, folded many times. He pulled it out. It was old. The paper was yellow and thin, and it felt like it could fall apart at any moment. He unfolded it very carefully. Inside was a hand-drawn map. It showed a river, a forest, and a small mark shaped like a cross. There were words written in tiny letters at the bottom, but the ink had faded so much that Sam could barely read them. He held it up to the light and managed to make out a few words. Below the stone, the truth sleeps. "What is that?" Officer Reyes asked. "I think it is a map," Sam said. "An old one. Maybe my grandfather found this and went looking for whatever it points to." The officer did not look convinced. "Mr. Carter, your grandfather is 82. I do not think he would go on a treasure hunt in the middle of the night." But Sam knew his grandfather better than that. Henry Carter was not like other old men. He had spent his whole life studying history, looking for things that were lost and forgotten. If he found a map hidden in his own wall, there was no way he would just leave it there. He would follow it, no matter what. Sam asked if he could stay in the house while the police continued their search. Officer Reyes agreed and gave him her card in case he found anything useful. After she left, Sam sat down at the kitchen table and studied the map more carefully. The river on the map looked familiar. There was a river that ran through the forest behind his grandfather's property. Sam had played near it as a child during summer visits. The forest was thick and deep, and his grandfather had always told him not to go too far into it. "Some places are better left alone," his grandfather used to say. Sam never understood what he meant by that. Now he was starting to wonder. He turned the map over. On the back, in his grandfather's handwriting, there were more recent notes. His grandfather had written dates and short sentences. "Found the first marker, March 3rd. The old bridge is still there, March 10th. Someone else is looking, March 15th. That last note made Sam's blood go cold. Someone else is looking. Looking for what? And who? Sam stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the forest behind the house. The trees stood tall and still, their branches reaching up like dark fingers against the gray sky. Somewhere in that forest, his grandfather had been searching for something, and now his grandfather was gone. Sam made a decision. He was going to follow the map. He was going to find out what his grandfather had been looking for. And he was going to bring his grandfather home. He put on his jacket, folded the map carefully into his pocket, and stepped out the back door. The air was cool and smelled like wet earth. The path into the forest started at the edge of the garden, just past the old fence that was falling apart. Sam opened the gate and began to walk. He did not know what he would find in that forest. He did not know if his grandfather was safe or in danger. But he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to sit in that empty house and wait. He was going to get answers, even if the forest did not want to give them. The trees closed around him as he walked deeper. The light from the sky grew weaker. The sounds of the town disappeared behind him, and ahead, somewhere in the shadows and the silence, the truth was waiting. The forest was darker than Sam remembered. When he was a child, the trees had seemed friendly, like tall guardians watching over him while he played. But now, walking alone with only a faded map in his pocket, the forest felt different. It felt alive in a way that made the hair on his arms stand up. He followed the path that ran alongside the river. The water was brown and fast from the rain the night before. The map showed the river clearly, with a small circle drawn at a point where it curved sharply to the left. Sam guessed that was about a mile ahead. He kept walking. The ground was soft and muddy. His shoes sank with every step. Branches reached out and scratched his arms. Birds called from somewhere high above, but he could not see them through the thick green ceiling of leaves. Every few minutes, he stopped and checked the map, turning it this way and that to match it with what he could see around him. After about 30 minutes of walking, he reached the curve in the river, and there, just as the map showed, he found something. It was an old stone marker, about 3 feet tall, covered in moss and dirt. Someone had carved symbols into it a long time ago, but they were worn down by weather and time. Sam crouched beside it and brushed away the moss with his fingers. He could make out what looked like an arrow pointing deeper into the forest, away from the river. This must have been the first marker his grandfather had written about in his notes. Sam felt a mix of excitement and fear. He was on the right path. His grandfather had been here. He stood up and looked in the direction the arrow pointed. There was no path, just thick trees and bushes. But Sam pushed through them anyway. He walked for another 20 minutes, fighting through branches and stepping over fallen logs. Then suddenly, the trees opened up into a small clearing. In the middle of the clearing, there was an old stone bridge crossing a narrow stream. The bridge was ancient. Its stones were cracked and covered in green plants. It looked like something from a fairy tale, forgotten by the world for hundreds of years. Sam remembered his grandfather's note. The old bridge is still there. This was the place. He crossed the bridge carefully, testing each step before putting his full weight down. The stones held, and he made it to the other side. Beyond the bridge, the forest changed. The trees were older here. Their trunks were wider than Sam's whole body, and their roots rose out of the ground like the backs of sleeping snakes. The air was cooler and had a strange smell, like old stone and wet leaves mixed together. It was quiet. Even the birds had stopped singing. Sam checked the map again. According to it, there should be another marker somewhere nearby, and then the cross that marked the final spot. He looked around carefully, moving slowly between the massive trees. Then he saw it. Another stone, smaller than the first one, half buried in the ground. This one had something different on it. Instead of an arrow, it had a symbol that looked like an eye. Sam knelt down and studied it. The eye was carved deep into the stone. It stared up at him in a way that made him uncomfortable. He looked around, feeling like someone was watching him. But there was no one. He was alone. Or at least, he thought he was. A sound came from behind him, a branch breaking. Sam spun around and stared into the trees. Nothing moved. He held his breath and listened. Silence. Then another sound, softer this time. Footsteps. Someone was definitely there. His voice sounded small in the huge forest. Is someone there? No answer. But the footsteps stopped. Sam waited for a long minute, his heart beating fast. Then he heard a voice. It was low and rough, like it belonged to someone who had not spoken in a long time. You should not be here. Sam turned toward the voice. A figure stepped out from behind one of the large trees. It was a man, probably in his 60s, with a long gray beard and clothes that looked like they had not been washed in weeks. He carried a walking stick made from a thick branch, and his eyes were sharp and suspicious. Who are you? Sam asked. My name is not important, the man said. What is important is that you turn around and go back the way you came. I cannot do that, Sam said. I am looking for my grandfather, Henry Carter. He is missing, and I think he came this way. The man's expression changed when he heard the name. His eyes widened slightly, and he gripped his walking stick tighter. Henry Carter is your grandfather. Yes. Do you know him? Have you seen him? The man was quiet for a moment. He looked at Sam carefully, as if he was trying to decide whether to trust him. Then he let out a long breath and shook his head slowly. I know Henry. He has been coming to this forest for weeks. I warned him. I told him to stop digging into things that should stay buried. But he would not listen. Stubborn man. Digging into what? What is in this forest? Sam asked. The man looked around nervously, as if the trees themselves might be listening. There is something under this forest, something old, something that people hid here a very long time ago because it was too dangerous to keep in the open. Your grandfather found out about it. He found a map, and he would not stop until he found what the map pointed to. This map? The man looked at it and nodded. There was another copy. Your grandfather had it. He must have left that one behind in case something happened to him. He paused. Something did happen to him. Sam felt his stomach twist. What happened? Where is he? He found the place, the man said. The place the map leads to. A chamber underground, hidden beneath a great stone. But he was not the only one looking. There are others. Dangerous people. They have been searching for this place for years. They got to your grandfather before I could warn him. Who are they? What do they want? Sam asked, his voice rising. They call themselves the Keepers. They believe that what is hidden under this forest belongs to them. They believe it has been theirs for generations. When they found out your grandfather was close to discovering it, they took him. Sam could not believe what he was hearing. His grandfather, taken by some group of strangers in the middle of the forest. It sounded insane. But his grandfather was missing, and this man clearly knew something. Take me to the place, Sam said. The chamber. If they took my grandfather, that is where they would bring him. The man shook his head. It is too dangerous. There are at least 5 of them, maybe more. They are not kind people. They will not let you walk in and take your grandfather. I do not care, Sam said firmly. He is my grandfather. I am not leaving without him. The man studied Sam's face for a long time. Then slowly, a small smile appeared on his lips. You are just like him, you know. Just as stubborn. He turned and started walking deeper into the forest. Come then, but stay close and stay quiet. If the Keepers find us before we are ready, we will both end up where your grandfather is. Sam followed the man through the ancient trees. Evening was coming, and the forest was growing darker with every step. Sam did not know this man's name. He did not know if he could trust him. But he had no other choice. His grandfather was out there somewhere, and Sam was going to find him. The man walked fast for his age, moving through the forest like he knew every tree and every rock. He did not speak as they walked. Sam wanted to ask him 100 questions, but he remembered the warning to stay quiet. So he kept his mouth shut and followed. After what felt like an hour, the man stopped. He held up his hand, telling Sam to stop too. Ahead of them, through a gap in the trees, Sam could see something. A light. A faint, golden light, coming from the ground itself. There it is, the man whispered. The entrance to the chamber. And if your grandfather is still alive, that is where he will be. Sam stared at the light. His hands were shaking, his mind was racing. But he took a deep breath and stepped forward. He had come this far. There was no turning back now. The light was coming from a hole in the ground, hidden between the roots of the largest tree Sam had ever seen. The tree was so wide that 10 people holding hands could not have wrapped their arms around it. Its roots spread out in every direction like the legs of a giant spider, and between 2 of the thickest roots there was an opening. Stone steps led down into the earth, and the golden light was rising from somewhere below. The old man crouched behind a fallen log and pulled Sam down beside him. Listen to me carefully, he whispered. The chamber below is large. It has many rooms carved out of the rock. The Keepers use torches for light, which is what you see. There are usually 2 guards near the entrance. The rest will be deeper inside. How do you know so much about them? Sam asked. The man's face became hard. Because I used to be one of them. A long time ago. Before I understood what they really were. You were a Keeper? I was young and foolish. They told me we were protecting history, protecting something sacred. But the truth is, they are selfish. They guard what is down there, not to protect the world from it, but to keep its power for themselves. When I tried to leave, they threatened me, so I disappeared into this forest. I have lived here ever since, watching them, making sure they do not do something terrible with what they have. What is down there? Sam asked. What are they protecting? The man hesitated. Your grandfather would be better at explaining it than me. He is the professor. But I will tell you what I know. Hundreds of years ago, a group of scholars discovered something in this region. They found writings and objects that did not belong to any known civilization. These things were old, older than anything anyone had ever found before. The scholars believed these objects had unusual properties. Others said they could show a person visions of the past and the future. Sam felt like he was listening to a fantasy story. But the missing grandfather, the hidden map, and the strange light coming from underground were all very real. The scholars could not agree on what to do, the man continued. Some wanted to share the discovery with the world. Others were afraid of what would happen if the wrong people got their hands on these objects. So the second group hid everything underground and formed a secret society to guard it. That society became the Keepers. And my grandfather found out about all of this? Sam asked. Your grandfather has been studying local history his entire life. He came across old letters and documents that mention this place. He spent years putting the pieces together. When he finally found the map, he knew exactly what it led to. He contacted me because he had heard stories about an old hermit living in the forest. He wanted my help. I told him everything I knew. I also told him it was dangerous. But like I said, your grandfather is a stubborn man. Sam smiled despite the situation. That sounded exactly like his grandfather. Once Henry Carter set his mind on something, nothing in the world could stop him. All right, Sam said. How do we get him out? The man reached into his coat and pulled out a small rusty key. There is a second entrance, a tunnel that the original builders made as an escape route. It comes out in one of the back chambers. The Keepers know about it, but they rarely guard it because they think no one else knows where it is. I have this key. It opens the gate at the end of the tunnel. Where is the tunnel? Sam asked. Follow me. They moved quietly through the trees, circling around the main entrance. The forest floor was covered in dead leaves that crunched softly under their feet. Sam tried to step as lightly as possible. Every small sound seemed dangerously loud in the silence. After a few minutes, the man stopped beside a large rock covered in thick green moss. He knelt down and pushed aside a pile of dead branches at the base of the rock. Behind them was a small opening, barely big enough for a person to crawl through. This is it, the man said. The tunnel goes straight for about 200 feet, then turns left. After the turn, you will reach a metal gate. Use this key. On the other side of the gate, you will be in the back chamber. From there, you need to be careful. The Keepers could be anywhere. Sam took the key. It was cold and heavy in his hand. Are you not coming with me? The man shook his head. I will go to the main entrance and create a distraction. I will make noise, draw their attention. That should give you time to find your grandfather and get out. That is dangerous for you, Sam said. I have been hiding from these people for 20 years. It is time I stopped hiding. The man put his hand on Sam's shoulder. Find your grandfather. Get him out. And then both of you need to leave Millbrook and never come back. What is down there, it is not worth dying over. Sam wanted to argue, but there was no time. The man was already walking away, heading back toward the main entrance. Sam watched him disappear into the shadows between the trees. Then he turned to the tunnel and got down on his hands and knees. The tunnel was tight and dark. Sam could barely see his own hands in front of him. The walls were made of rough stone, and the air was thick and cold. He crawled forward, inch by inch, trying not to think about the weight of the earth above him. The ground was damp, and his knees were soon wet and sore. He counted his movements to keep himself calm. After what he guessed was about 200 feet, the tunnel turned to the left, just as the man had said. Sam followed the turn and saw a faint light ahead. He crawled faster now, and soon he reached the metal gate. It was old and rusty, with thick bars set into the stone walls on both sides. There was a small lock in the center. Sam pushed the key into the lock. It was stiff and did not want to turn at first. He twisted harder, and with a loud click that made him stop breathing for a second, the lock opened. He pushed the gate slowly. It creaked. The sound echoed off the stone walls. Sam waited, listening. No footsteps, no voices. He pushed through and stood up. He was in a small room carved out of solid rock. The ceiling was low, and he had to bend his head slightly. Torches burned on the walls, casting dancing shadows. The room was empty, except for a few old wooden crates stacked in one corner. On the far wall, there was an opening that led into a larger space. Sam moved to the opening and looked through. What he saw made him hold his breath. The chamber was enormous. It was like a cathedral built underground. The ceiling rose high above, held up by thick stone pillars carved with the same eye symbol he had seen on the marker in the forest. Torches lined the walls, filling the space with warm, golden light. And in the center of the chamber, on a raised stone platform, there were objects. Dozens of them. Small statues, metal plates with strange writing, glass containers holding things Sam could not identify from this distance. They glowed faintly, as if they had their own light inside them. And there, sitting on the ground near the platform, with his hands tied behind his back, was his grandfather. Henry Carter looked tired and dirty. His white hair was messy, and his glasses were crooked on his face. But he was alive. Sam felt a wave of relief so strong that his knees almost gave out. His grandfather was alive. There were two men standing near Henry. They wore dark clothing and had serious faces. One of them was talking in a low voice, but Sam could not hear what he was saying. He needed to get closer. He needed a plan. Then, from somewhere above, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The distraction. The old man from the forest had done what he promised. The two guards looked up, startled. One of them said something to the other, and they both started walking quickly toward the main entrance, leaving Henry alone. This was Sam's chance. He stepped out from the opening and ran toward his grandfather as quietly as he could. Henry looked up, and his eyes went wide when he saw Sam. "Sam," he whispered, "what on earth are you doing here?" "Saving you," Sam whispered back. He knelt behind his grandfather and started working on the ropes around his wrists. "Hold still." The ropes were tight, but they were old and rough. Sam pulled and twisted at the knots. His fingers were shaking. He could hear voices in the distance, getting louder. The guards would come back soon. "Hurry," Henry said. His voice was calm, the way it always was. Even tied up in an underground chamber, Henry Carter was the calmest person Sam had ever known. The last knot came loose. Henry pulled his hands free and rubbed his wrists. Sam helped him to his feet. His grandfather was shaky, but he could stand. "This way," Sam said, pulling his grandfather toward the back room and the tunnel. "We have to go now." But Henry stopped. He turned and looked at the objects on the platform. "Sam, you do not understand. What is here, it is important. We cannot just leave it with them." "Grandfather, we do not have time," Sam said desperately. Henry looked at his grandson, then back at the platform. Then he reached into his own pocket and pulled out a small notebook. "I wrote everything down, every symbol, every object, every word I could read. They did not find this on me. Let us go." Sam grabbed his grandfather's arm, and they moved toward the tunnel. Behind them, the voices were getting closer. They had seconds, not minutes. Sam pushed Henry into the tunnel first, then crawled in after him, pulling the gate shut behind them. He did not bother locking it. There was no time. They crawled through the dark tunnel as fast as they could, the sound of their breathing echoing off the stone walls. Behind them, someone shouted. The keepers had found that Henry was gone. Sam and Henry crawled faster. The opening appeared ahead, a circle of gray evening light. They pushed through it and stumbled out into the forest. The air hit Sam's face like cold water, fresh and clean after the stuffy tunnel. "Run," Sam said. They ran through the forest like two animals being chased by wolves. Henry was old and slow, but fear gave him energy he did not normally have. Sam held his grandfather's arm and guided him through the trees, over roots and around rocks. Behind them, they could hear the sound of people crashing through the bushes. The keepers were coming. The forest was almost completely dark now. The sun had gone down, and only a thin gray light remained in the sky above the treetops. Sam could barely see where he was going. He tripped over a root and fell hard on the ground, pulling Henry down with him. Pain shot through his knee, but he got back up immediately. "Are you all right?" Henry asked, breathing heavily. "Fine. Keep moving," Sam said. They pushed forward. Sam tried to remember the way back. The old stone bridge, the first marker, the river. If they could reach the river, they could follow it back to the house. But in the darkness, everything looked the same. Every tree, every shadow, every direction seemed identical. Then Sam heard the river, the sound of water moving over rocks. It was to their right. He turned and pulled Henry toward it. When they reached the riverbank, Sam felt a small moment of relief. He knew this river. He knew where it led. "Follow the water," he told his grandfather. "Stay close to the edge." They moved along the river, their feet splashing in the shallow water near the bank. The sounds of pursuit behind them grew softer. Either the keepers had lost their trail, or they had given up for now. Sam did not believe they had given up. People like that never gave up. After 20 minutes of stumbling through the dark, Sam saw a light ahead. It was the back porch light of his grandfather's house. He had left it on when he entered the forest hours ago. It looked like the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. They crossed the overgrown garden and entered the house through the back door. Sam locked it immediately. Then he locked the front door too. He closed every window and pulled every curtain. His grandfather collapsed into a chair at the kitchen table, gasping for breath. Sam poured him a glass of water and sat down across from him. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Henry let out a weak laugh. "You came for me," he said. "I cannot believe you actually came." "Of course I came," Sam said. "You disappeared. The police called me. What were you thinking going into that forest alone?" Henry took a long drink of water and set the glass down. His hands were trembling. "I was thinking that I had spent 40 years of my life studying history, and I had finally found something truly remarkable. I could not just ignore it, Sam. You have to understand. What is in that chamber, it could change everything we know about the past." "It almost got you killed," Sam said. Henry was quiet for a moment. "You are right. I was careless. I knew the keepers were watching. I knew they were dangerous. But I thought I could be smarter than them. I thought I could get in, document everything, and get out before they noticed. I was wrong." Sam leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face with both hands. He was exhausted. Every part of his body hurt. But they were alive, and they were safe. At least for now. "Who are these people, grandfather? Really?" Sam asked. Henry opened his small notebook and placed it on the table between them. "The Keepers of the Stone. That is their full name. They have existed for over 300 years. They started as a group of scholars who made a discovery in this region. They found artifacts that did not match any known civilization. The artifacts had unusual properties. Some appeared to produce light without fire. Others seemed to affect the behavior of water and plants around them. The scholars were amazed, but they were also afraid. Afraid of what? Sam asked. Afraid of what people would do with such things. This was in the late 1600s. The world was full of wars and greed. If word got out about objects with these kinds of properties, powerful men would fight over them. Nations would go to war. So the scholars decided to hide everything underground and form a society to protect it. Henry turned a page in his notebook. Over the centuries, the society changed. The original scholars died, and their children took over. Then their grandchildren. Each generation became more secretive, more suspicious, more controlling. By the 20th century, the keepers had become something very different from what they started as. They no longer wanted to protect the artifacts from the world. They wanted to keep the artifacts for themselves. They believed the objects gave them special authority, special power. "That man in the forest," Sam said. "The one who helped me find you. He said he used to be a keeper." Henry nodded. Thomas Vane. He was a keeper for nearly 10 years before he could not take it anymore. He saw what they were becoming. They were not scholars. They were not protectors. They were hoarders. They were sitting on the greatest archaeological discovery in human history and keeping it locked in a hole in the ground. "He risked his life to help me," Sam said. "He created a distraction so I could get to you." Henry's face became worried. "Thomas did that? I hope they did not catch him. He is a brave man, a better man than most of them." Sam stood up and looked out the window through a gap in the curtain. The backyard was dark and still. Nothing moved. But he could not shake the feeling that they were being watched. "We need to leave, grandfather. Tonight. That man, Thomas. He told me to take you and leave Millbrook and never come back." Henry shook his head. "I cannot do that, Sam." "What do you mean you cannot do that? These people tied you up. They locked you in an underground room. What do you think they will do next time?" "Next time, I will be prepared," Henry said calmly. Sam could not believe what he was hearing. "Grandfather, this is not a game. These are dangerous people." Henry stood up and placed both hands flat on the table. His eyes were bright and sharp, and for a moment, Sam did not see an old man. He saw the professor, the man who had spent his entire career chasing the truth. "Sam, listen to me. What is in that chamber could change the course of human history. Those artifacts are proof that there was a civilization in this region that we know nothing about. A civilization with knowledge and abilities that we cannot explain. If I walk away now, the keepers will continue to hide it. The world will never know, and that is not right." Sam sat back down. He understood his grandfather's passion. He had grown up watching it. But passion could get people hurt. It could get people killed. "So what do you want to do?" Sam asked quietly. Henry opened his notebook to a page covered in drawings and notes. "I documented almost everything in the chamber before they caught me. I drew the symbols on the pillars. I described every artifact I could see. I copied the writing on the metal plates. But I need more. I need photographs. I need to bring the right people here. Archaeologists, historians, people who can verify what I found and make it public. Once the world knows, the keepers cannot keep it secret anymore." "And how exactly are we going to do that when there is a group of angry people with a 300-year-old grudge standing between us and the evidence?" Sam asked. Henry smiled. It was the same smile Sam remembered from childhood. The smile his grandfather wore when he had a plan. "We are going to need help," Henry said, "and I know exactly who to call." He picked up the phone and dialed a number. Sam watched as his grandfather spoke quietly into the phone. He could only hear Henry's side of the conversation, but it was clear that whoever was on the other end was someone Henry trusted deeply. When he hung up, Henry looked at Sam. "An old friend of mine, Dr. Lena Park. She is a professor of archaeology at the State University. She has known about my research for years. She has been waiting for this call." "Is she going to come here?" Sam asked. "She is going to do more than that," Henry said. "She is going to bring a team, and she is going to bring the press. Once cameras and reporters are involved, the keepers will not be able to do a thing. Their only power is secrecy. We take that away, and they have nothing." Sam thought about it. But plans had a way of falling apart, especially when dangerous people were involved. And the keepers knew this forest better than anyone. They had been living in it for centuries. "When will she get here?" Sam asked. "Tomorrow afternoon," Henry said, "which means we need to survive one more night." Sam looked at the locked doors and covered windows. He thought about the dark forest outside. and the people who were probably already looking for them. One more night. It sounded simple, but Sam had a feeling it was going to be the longest night of his life. He pulled a chair to the front door and sat down. He was not going to sleep. He was going to watch, and if the keepers came knocking, they were going to find that the Carter family was not easy to break. Henry came and sat beside him. He put his hand on Sam's knee. "Thank you for coming, Sam. I am sorry I dragged you into this." Sam shook his head. "You are my family. Where else would I be?" They sat together in the dark house, watching the shadows and listening to the silence. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, carrying with it the sounds of the forest. And somewhere out there, in the darkness beneath the ancient trees, the keepers were planning their next move. The night passed slowly. Every creak of the old house made Sam jump. Every gust of wind against the windows sounded like someone trying to get in. He sat in his chair by the front door with a heavy flashlight in his hand, the only thing close to a weapon he could find. Henry had fallen asleep in the chair beside him, his head tilted to one side, his breathing slow and steady. Even in danger, his grandfather could sleep like a baby. Sam wished he had that ability. Around 3 in the morning, something happened. Sam heard footsteps on the front porch. They were slow and careful, the kind of footsteps made by someone who did not want to be heard. Sam gripped the flashlight tighter and stood up. He moved to the window and peeked through the tiny gap in the curtain. A figure was standing on the porch. Sam's heart raced, but then the figure raised a hand and knocked softly on the door. 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. Henry stirred awake at the sound. "Open it," Henry whispered. That it locked the door and opened it a crack. Thomas Vane stood there, looking worse than before. His coat was torn, and there was a cut above his left eye that was still bleeding, but he was smiling. "They chased me for an hour," Thomas said, stepping inside. "But they do not know this forest the way I do. I lost them near the old mill." "Are you hurt badly?" Sam asked. "This is nothing," Thomas said, touching the cut on his head. "I have had worse from falling out of trees. Now tell me your plan." "I heard you on the phone, Henry. You called someone." Henry explained everything. Dr. Lena Park, the team of archaeologists, the press, the plan to expose the chamber and everything in it to the world. Thomas listened carefully, nodding slowly. When Henry finished, Thomas sat down and was quiet for a long time. "It is a good plan," Thomas said finally. "But the keepers will not wait. They know you escaped. They know you have seen what is down there. By morning, they will either try to take you again, or they will start moving the artifacts to a new location. They have done it before. 50 years ago, they moved everything from a different site when they thought they had been discovered. If they move it now, your friend and her team will arrive to find an empty hole in the ground." Henry's face fell. He had not thought of that. Sam had not either. The excitement of the plan dissolved like sugar in water. "Then we need to slow them down," Sam said. "We need to keep them from moving anything until Dr. Park gets here." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "And how do you suggest we do that?" Sam did not have an answer right away. He paced around the kitchen, thinking. Then an idea came to him. It was risky. It was probably foolish, but it was all he had. "The tunnel," Sam said. "The one we used to escape. If we go back through it tonight, we can reach the back chamber. From there, we can block the main passage into the chamber. Those old crates I saw, and the stones, we can pile them up. It will not stop them forever, but it will slow them down." Thomas shook his head. "The keepers will break through any barrier we build." "Maybe," Sam said, "but we do not need to stop them forever. We just need to buy time until tomorrow afternoon. If we block the passage and they have to spend hours clearing it, that might be enough." Thomas looked at Henry. Henry looked at Sam. Then the old professor smiled his knowing smile again. "There is something else we can do," Henry said. He opened his notebook and pointed to one of his drawings. It showed a series of symbols on one of the stone pillars inside the chamber. "When I was studying the chamber, I noticed something about the pillars. They are not just decorative. The entire ceiling is held up by those pillars. And I noticed that 2 of the pillars on the north side have deep cracks in them. The stone is weak." Sam stared at his grandfather. "Are you suggesting we bring down the ceiling?" Henry said quickly. "Not the whole ceiling, just the north passage. It is the main way in and out. If we can weaken those pillars further, the passage will collapse and seal itself. The artifacts will be safe underground, and the keepers will not be able to reach them. When Dr. Park arrives with her team, they can excavate properly through the tunnel entrance." Thomas looked worried. "If we bring down that passage while we are inside, we could be trapped, or worse. That is why we will do it from the back chamber," Henry said. "The tunnel exit is clear on the other side. We weaken the pillars, start the collapse, and run back through the tunnel before the ceiling comes down." It was a dangerous plan. Everyone in the room knew that. But it was also the only plan that might actually work. "When do we go?" Sam asked. "Now," Henry said. "Before sunrise, while it is still dark." They prepared quickly. Thomas found rope in the garden shed. Sam grabbed tools from his grandfather's workbench, a hammer and a heavy iron bar. Henry brought his notebook and a small camera he had in his desk drawer. He wanted to take photographs before they sealed the passage. They left the house just before 4 in the morning. The forest was completely dark, but Thomas led the way with the confidence of a man who had walked these paths 1,000 times. They moved quietly and quickly, following the river, past the stone marker, past the bridge, and to the moss-covered rock that hid the tunnel entrance. One by one they crawled through the tunnel. Sam went first this time. The key was still in the gate from before, and it swung open easily. They entered the back chamber and stopped to listen. The main chamber beyond was silent. No voices, no footsteps. Either the keepers had left for the night, or they were somewhere else in the underground rooms. Henry moved into the main chamber first. He went straight to the artifacts on the stone platform. His eyes lit up, the way they used to when Sam was a child, and Henry would find an interesting old coin or a rare book at a market. Henry pulled out his camera and began taking photographs. The flash lit up the chamber like lightning, and Sam prayed that no one was close enough to see it. While Henry photographed everything, Sam and Thomas went to the north passage. The 2 cracked pillars were easy to spot. The cracks ran from the base almost to the top, deep and dark, like veins in the stone. Thomas pressed his hand against one, and small pieces of rock crumbled away. "These are barely holding," Thomas said. "A few strong hits should do it. But once they start to go, we will have maybe 30 seconds before the whole passage comes down. We need to be back in the tunnel by then." Sam positioned himself at the first pillar and raised the iron bar. Thomas stood at the second with the hammer. They looked at each other and nodded. "Henry," Sam called as loudly as he dared. "Time to go. Get to the tunnel." Henry took one last photograph and hurried toward the back chamber. Once he was through the opening, Sam looked at Thomas. "On 3, Sam said. 1, 2, 3. They struck at the same time. Swung the iron bar against the crack in his pillar with everything he had. The impact sent a shockwave up his arms. Pieces of stone flew off. Thomas hit his pillar with the hammer. Once, twice, 3 times. The crack widened. A deep rumbling sound came from above, like the earth itself was groaning. "Again!" Thomas shouted. This time, a large chunk broke away from the base. The pillar shifted. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The rumbling grew louder. "Go! Now!" Thomas yelled. They turned and ran. Sam had never run so fast in his life. The ground was shaking under his feet. Stones were falling from the ceiling behind them, crashing to the floor with sounds like thunder. They reached the back chamber just as the first pillar gave way completely. The noise was deafening. A wall of dust and debris rushed toward them like a wave. Sam dove into the tunnel. Thomas was right behind him. They crawled as fast as they could, coughing and choking on the dust. Behind them, a roar of collapsing stone filled the tunnel like a storm. Then, slowly, the noise faded. The shaking stopped, and everything went quiet. They crawled out of the tunnel into the cool morning air. Henry was waiting for them, his face white with worry. When he saw them emerge, covered in dust but alive, he grabbed them both in a hug that was surprisingly strong for an old man. "It worked," Thomas said, catching his breath. "The passage is sealed." They walked back to the house as the first light of dawn appeared in the sky. The birds were singing again. The forest looked peaceful, as if nothing had happened beneath it. Dr. Lena Park arrived that afternoon, with a team of 12 people and 3 journalists. Henry showed them his notebook, his photographs, and the map. He led them to the tunnel entrance. The team set up equipment and began a proper, careful excavation. The journalists filmed everything. The story broke the next day. It was on every news channel and in every newspaper. A hidden underground chamber containing artifacts from an unknown civilization, discovered in a small town in the middle of nowhere. Archaeologists from around the world flew in to study the site. The keepers, exposed and outnumbered, scattered like shadows in sunlight. Some were arrested. Others simply vanished. Thomas Vane was recognized as a key witness and was offered protection by the authorities. He refused to leave the forest, but he accepted a new, proper cabin built for him near the river. He became a guide for the research teams, showing them paths and markers that only he knew about. Henry Carter became famous. His notebook was published as a book, and he was invited to speak at universities around the world. But he turned down most of the invitations. He preferred to stay in Millbrook, in his old house with the peeling paint, drinking tea and reading his books. Some things, he said, were more important than fame. And Sam, who had come to Millbrook to find a missing old man, found something else entirely. He found a purpose. He enrolled in a history program at the State University, studying under Dr. Park. He visited his grandfather every weekend. They would sit on the back porch, looking out at the forest, and Henry would tell him stories. Stories about the past. Stories about the things that were still waiting to be discovered. The forest stood tall and quiet behind the house, keeping its secrets as it always had. But now, for the first time in 300 years, people were listening. And the truth, so long buried in the dark, was finally stepping into the light.